Welcome back to the Dicey Oracle Show. I'm your guide, Jess, Goldynfinch, your intuitive tarot reader and mystical artist. This is episode 3 of a springboard series I've started here on the channel to invite you into a personal tarot practice. Now, if you're just kind of joining into this series, episode 1 was around getting a deck and really explicitly debunking the myth around the need for you to wait to be initiated and offered a deck, and instead stepping into your power, into your personal agency, and going and getting a deck that best serves you and aligns with your worldview. Now, episode 2 of this mini-series was around storing your deck, cleansing, clearing, as well as some beginning tips for getting to know your deck. I personally feel like one of the really important nuggets that came through in that episode was around our responsibility in terms of cleansing tools that are ethical, that are not harmful, that are reducing harm, and that are certainly not culturally appropriative. And that's incredibly important, especially for those of us who are white readers. And now here we are, episode 3, shuffling and pulling cards. So like there is with so many other things around this tool, there are many myths and misconceptions and superstitions floating around there through word of mouth and the internet ether. Now, if you are ready to shuffle your deck because 1, you got one, 2, you cleansed it and have started to kind of talk with it, and now you're ready to work with it and you're like, yes, Jess, okay, teach me how to shuffle, show me how to shuffle, I'm ready to go. My big advice to you would be, so shuffle your deck. But I do know that there is some comfort in having some, some seeds, some sparks, some ideas to kind of riff with as you're kind of delving into your personal practice. So we will go ahead and do that. So since I keep saying there's very few shoulds or should nots, you're going to want to develop a personal practice in terms of how you shuffle and pull cards. But now I'm going to almost kind of rebuke what I just said, because while I made it sound like it's 100% up to you, to be honest, to be real, it really isn't, because your deck itself is going to have a voice and have a say, because it might be for whatever your preferred style might be. Your deck may come through and say, nope, sorry, I'm too big, too slippery, too small, too stiff, too fragile, too whatever. So your deck is going to play a really important role in determining how you shuffle. Now, case in point, this particular deck that I have here, you can read about it in the show notes, is almost too large to be almost too big for my preferred method, which my personal method is the shuffling overhand, kind of portrait style. Now, if it was a little bit larger, I would then be kind of forced to turn it around and shuffle it this way, which you'll see oftentimes a lot of readers shuffling this way, because frankly, a lot of the decks on the market are pretty large and oversized when we're thinking about tarot and oracle decks, and or this may just be personal preference for folks. However, see, I'm a bit awkward that way. I prefer to go the landscape way. In addition to that kind of overhand shuffle, when you hear the word shuffle, if not within the context of tarot cards, but like a regular deck of playing cards, and you think of shuffle, you might be thinking of that casino style. And many readers do shuffle in that very way. Now, I am somebody who likes to frequent Vegas, so when I think of that casino style, I think of that machine that you can find at the tables that is like riffing the cards together, riffling them together into a cohesive, mixed up stack. And you could do that several times over and over again. Now, some decks will frankly just say no to that style. I have some decks, like I said, that are saying, no, I'm too fragile for that kind of shuffle, especially for like a bridge, or they're too stiff or just way too large and cumbersome for that. So if you kind of like that casino style, a modification might be to shuffle them side by side. It's a little bit gentler, for your cards and then just kind of pushing them back together. Now you could also, I don't have the workspace to fully demonstrate this technique, but I'm sure you've seen this or you can imagine it with me, where you just spread all the cards out onto a table or surface of some kind and just mix them up, stir them up like it's a big old pot and you're going in all kinds of different directions. Just really get in there and have them be all mixed up and invigorated. So that's another technique for shuffling. And I think those are really the major techniques that you'll see, which would be like the overhand. And again, there's, going from the middle first. There's different, techniques within the technique that you could utilize or experiment with. Then we also have the casino style of like the riffling them together and the stirring them up and the mixing them up. That would, I think, is kind of like the basics in terms of shuffling. Now, in terms of pulling cards, this is different now. You can pull cards, and you'll see people do that where they are pulling cards from the top of the deck, turning them over into either a free form kind of conversation to begin reading them, or placing them in predetermined spots for like significant or specific like questions to zoom in on, and that's called a spread. So again, you can pull cards, put cards out, pull cards, put cards out, and read them free flow, free form, or read them in a particular way based on a spread that everything kind of has its own spot depending on the spread and the question. Neither is right, neither is wrong, right? It may very well depend on what's going on, your reading style, the question. If this is kind of just a check-in or a big formal to-do, would determine how you operate with that. Now, for pulling cards, some people might also have like a system where they take 7 cards, let's say off the top. I think I heard on a podcast somebody does that. And then once they get to the 8th card, that's the card they'll start flipping over. And from there, they'll start turning cards over for the spread, for the reading. I also know of readers, and have been known to do this as well. I'm very much a curious cat, very playful, very much one to experiment. So I have, tried all these different methods. Might also shuffle, and then to begin having cards come forward, we'll just kind of open the pile like a book. Okay? And maybe putting the bottom part here and then start pulling from the top. There's also readers who will not pull necessarily like that, but just kind of feel their way down the side and then go in and pull a card or open it up from there. Now, you've also probably seen this technique in the movies and on TV shows, and if this technique suits you, it's kind of a crowd pleaser, although I would say don't do anything to be pleasing others. This is all about your personal practice. Even when reading with others, do you. That's when the most authentic, real messages will come through, is when you're able to really honor your style. So, fanning out the cards and then determining which cards come forward or to pull for the spread could be determined in a couple different ways. Some folks are very visual and will just have a visual knowing by looking at the cards in front of them that it's this card. Okay, so there's like a visual knowing, a visual hit of some kind, or like a whisper in the ear, or just simply a knowing that can't be articulated to another person or even to the self. It just simply is. There's also, for some readers, a like tactile bodily experience. While hovering the hand above the cards, there can be a zap or a zing or a burn or a tingle or a heat or a coolness, or again, just simply a connected knowing, a connected, that's the one. Okay. Now, this knowing is very much a trusting in the intuition, a trusting in the bird song, in the system, in the ritual and routine, or not. That whatever is stepping forward or whatever method is being used in the moment, when a card is selected, that is the card. The trusting and the knowing go hand in hand. It's not oh no, it wasn't that one, right? Once it's pulled, or it steps forward and is being acknowledged, that is the card. That is the medicine. That is the invitation. That is the meditation right there. Okay, so that's a method. Now here's where some superstition comes in, where you may be familiar with hearing that the way is to, with your left hand, the lunar hand, the hand of intuition, the non-dominant hand, arrange the deck into 3 piles, and then continuing with that hand, resorting them back into 1 pile, and then drawing from there. Now, I say, if you are somebody who likes to have like a nod to some tradition, perhaps, if you are someone who likes rituals and routines and likes to ritualize things, then this might be a really good option for that. And if you are also somebody who envisions yourself reading with or for other people, and you want to invite the participant, the seeker, the client into the reading, and you do the 3 piles, that might be a really nice way to then invite them into having that tactile experience of having them then put the cards back together in whatever way they see fit, or if you're uncomfortable with that, dictating to them, take this pile and do what have you, your rules, your cards, your show. Some readers are like, absolutely no one touches their cards but them. And some are like, sure, let's intermingle energies in that way. So again, experiment, figure out what works for you. For me personally, I am somebody who has, when working with another, one-on-one in a live face-to-face setting, have had folks work with the cards and putting the 3 piles back together. Now, if I'm reading for myself or doing a digital reading for a client or a video conference reading with a client, my typical go-to, again, I said I'm somebody who kind of follows birdsong, so I sometimes am led to do it differently. But my go-to is typically to do the overhand shuffle until my deck becomes activated. And what I mean by that is I'm usually given a very clear bodily sensation that the time has come, that my deck is ready to start speaking, that cards are ready to start coming forward. And what that looks like for me, and again, it could be completely different for you, but I know some people like to have some ideas. It could be where a card is very much positioned very differently than the rest of the deck, and I know, it's a knowing that that card wants to come forward. Sometimes it's just, and this one, it's just like a whisper and a knowing. I also oftentimes have cards that will fly from the deck. Those are called jumpers. And once my deck is activated and I am experiencing the sweaty palms, the tingling in the hands, and like an electrical current kind of going up through here, then I know that those are part of the reading. So if they fly from my deck, it's not me being sloppy, it's the card wants to speak. So I take jumpers. And again, since I'm just demonstrating right now, So these 2 cards really wanted to like flip over and be invited in. So I also take cards that flip over, like they write themselves up while I'm doing this shuffle. That will happen quite often. And so that will be cards that come forward. And there is an example of a jumper. Okay. So Shuffle how you feel called. Shuffle how your deck is being inviting you to work with it, to handle it. Feel how the cards feel in your hand, how they respond to you maybe visually. You may end up with more than one deck like me, and different decks are going to want to be handled in different manners because of some of just those logistics that I mentioned earlier, but also because there can sometimes just be a conversation where your deck will say, I don't like that for whatever reason, or be like, I do like this, and there's just kind of like this rightness to a certain way that it wants to be handled, if that makes sense. So I think this is enough for now. I'm really looking forward to us continuing to diving into some different logistics, as well as into some methodologies to have you begin developing a personal practice. So thanks for being here. Until next time, tweet tweet.